good people? It's Ngugi, and I'm going to be your host for today's podcast. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about how can a creative grow their brand, and also how can a creative manage the social media. And with me, I have a guest. His name is Alex Dizo Kachepa, who is a marketer for HD Plus and also a creative consultant. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Wow, that's one nice introduction there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
We're also delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
So today we're gonna get into how can a creative grow their brand, and also how can a creative manage the social media. So you being a creative consultant and also a marketer, I know you have more knowledge in this field specifically.
I do.
So maybe let's start with who is a brand and what is a brand?
Okay. I think that's a good way to start, because a lot of people don't get what a brand is. A lot of people think a brand means the logo, the colors that you pick, and all that kind of stuff. But the brand is not the physical stuff. It's the experience that you give people. There's a famous saying in marketing where we say, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, a brand, basically, it's a way that you identify, whether you're a creative or anything else. It's basically what you want to be identified as and what you want people to perceive you as. Yeah, basically what you want people to think of you when you're not in the room. Yeah.
So what are some categories that you can actually put in the category of a brand, like this is a brand in a creative industry?
In the creative industry, I think that's where it gets tricky, because a creative brand is not just the person.
Yeah.
For example, yourself, right? You are a fashion designer, you're a TV personality, you're a lot of things, you're a philanthropist. But Ngugi International is the brand, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's what you think, what you are, or what you want people to perceive you as, Ngugi International. So in the creative space, a lot of people think the brand should just be tied to them as a person or as a personality. But in real, what you want your brand to be is everything that people experience when they're with you or when you're involved. So social media pages, what does that look like? That's your brand. The way that people interact with you, what you talk about when you're in the room now, right? How you and other people converse or interact with each other or engage. That's also part of your brand. It's not your logo. It's not the actual clothes that you sell, right? You're selling an experience. You're selling an idea as a creative. It's different from Toyota. We know Toyota makes a car, right? And their brand is, we make cars that are built for a long-term and long-lasting cars, but affordable. That's their brand. That's the message they put out. For you, on the other hand, for what you're mostly known as a fashion designer, you're a luxury brand, right? And everything that you do has to coordinate with that brand.
Yeah.
So even the way that you dress, the way that you talk, the way that you walk when you're around, it has to basically reflect what you want people to think of your clothes as you. So I think that's where it gets very tricky for creators, because it's tied to almost your personality and you as a person or the owner of the brand, rather than if you were selling a camera or shoe or just a car or so whatever, it would be different. But now you have to sell yourself. Yeah.
And I mean, talking about brands, there's so many brands. There's like we talk about cars, there's so many brand cars, but here specifically we're trying to get to know about creative. So in the creative industry, which are some of the specific categories that you can actually say this one can actually be included in the creative industry? Of course, apart from fashion designing, since you already mentioned that, but just maybe a list done, because some people cannot even know who is a creative.
True.
So maybe if you can elaborate who is a creative, or maybe looking at Malawi market.
I think, how do we define a creative in Malawi? That's an interesting one, because a lot of people, when we say creative, quite frankly, they think of like you mentioned, a fashion designer, a musician, a photographer, a videographer. Yeah, that's what we immediately think of when we say a brand or a creative brand. But I'll give an example of somebody like, I know I give this example a lot, but I'll give the example of somebody like Ntanda Bandui, right? She's a creative brand, and she's maintained being a creative brand over a very long period of time. But I was in our class, on just the last class that I had with the team for Music for Malawi training, I was talking about how she came from an influencer. She was she was what we would call, I guess, a beauty pageant model. So she was part of the Miss Malawi. I can't remember what year.
2017.
That 2017. She was, I think, from there she moved into being a tourism influencer, where she was going around to hotels, lodges, making content, putting it out there. That's a whole different kind of creative, because even while she was doing the Miss Malawi, she was still a creative. You know, she was in fashion and she was a model. That's still being a creative. And then she moved to being an influencer, which is another way of being a creative. But for there, I'd like to point out that there's a difference between being a creative influencer and just being an influencer, right? Because I mean, nowadays anyone can be an influencer, as long as anyone can be an influencer as long as you have content that blows up. I mean, let's look at
your social media following is good. Any brand can be like, oh, can you sell this for us?
Exactly. Can you put our stuff on your page, kind of thing. That's just an influencer, but not a creative influencer, because you're not necessarily creating content or creating something that could be
something original that you have actually put thoughts into
and
say, I want
intentional.
the video to turn out like this.
Exactly. You know, but then, you know, Tara moved into the influencer space, and she grew that to the point where she was probably the biggest influencer in terms of travel. But her brand is very different from what you would see. There's a young lady, I think her name is Mervis.
Yes.
She does travel with Mervis, right? For Mervis, for example, it's a very different kind of influencer. She's more into the physical, the hiking, the kind of stuff. It's about her selling the experience of being outdoors.
Not really art telling stories.
Stories, exactly. It's mostly about literally just selling the product, to say, hey, I went to, I don't know, Mangoji, and I went to that kind of thing. So as time has gone, I think the word creative has taken its own kind of life. There's a lot of people who call themselves creatives who aren't necessarily creating. Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's important to actually understand who is a creative and what is a brand and who's an influencer, like how you're explaining it now.
Yeah, I think to define yourself as a creative, you need to make sure that you're actually creating something. Not just people follow you or you know, people are excited when you walk into the room, but you have to be somebody who's actually creating something. But also there's the flip side. Like myself, I consider myself a creative, right? But I work on the more corporate sector now. I came from, you know, being a rapper, being a producer, being an actor, being a radio host, a TV host, and that's where I grew my love for marketing, and I discovered I have a passion for marketing, and I went into marketing, and now I'm on the other side of things, where I'm not necessarily creating things, but I have to be creative in the way that I execute things. Especially in marketing, you cannot be a good marketer if you're not creative, you know? You have to have some kind of creative sense in you.
And also, growth is not instant. If you can, I think, see through some of the people that have been actually able to grow their brand here in Malawi, you can tell the story that they started from somewhere. They didn't even know how it can actually be, how they can grow so big. I even traveled with Mavis. I think she was just creating for the love of nature and beauty
being
of
outdoors.
Malawi and stuff. But I think she actually also didn't know that later on this is going to be something that should be recognized for and praised for her putting Malawi on the map. So it's also about being patient with yourself as a creator. You can start something today, but I guess you need to be patient with it. So maybe right now, let's go for a quick break, and we'll be right back to discuss more about how can a creative create their brand and also how they can manage their social media. Alex will be right here to give us more. Welcome back. We're continuing talking about how can a creative grow their brand and also how can a creative manage their social media. And of course, I have a lovely guest, Alex, who has been with us from the beginning, telling us how one can actually be able to go through these topics as a creative. And we're continuing from there.
Okay, so social media.
Yes, social media.
Social media is a touchy subject for creatives. There's a very thin line between, you know, being authentic but also alienating your audience and messing up your art, right? I mean, even, okay, let's take it from even seeing as we're already on Pimpero Pande, let's go to Ketura, right? His girlfriend, or future wife, I guess. But like she recently, there was this thing about, I think it was Kosoma, where she felt that she didn't get enough royalties and etc. And she went straight to social media. And she started talking about Kosoma and how she feels that she didn't get how money is worth or how value. as royalties and stuff. Immediately that you've already started alienating some of your audience. You know, it's good to be confident, but then do not be overconfident to the point where now you're affecting your art, especially on the Malawi landscape. It's
Malawi
difficult.
can humble you.
Yeah, Malawi will humble you, my friend. You know, one minute they love you, tomorrow they hate you. So I think in terms of managing your social media, the advice that I usually give to other creatives is number one, consistency. Your brand per se should have consistency across all your social media channels. So if you're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, make sure the content that you're posting is consistent and you're adding value to people. A lot of creatives get carried away because, you know, they do something that people like and then they're getting the likes and whatnot. They start thinking, I can just post myself, or I can just post whatever I want, and, you know, and people will like it. It will work for maybe some time, but then when it comes to like value over a longer period of time, you're really not getting that value simply because you yourself are not posting things that are of value. So consistency is key, and the one way that I always say is if you want to be consistent, it's about planning, knowing what you're going to post 1 month from now. You know, not just tomorrow, but 1 month from now, you should know on such and such a date, I'm going to post this. For me as a marketer, I learned
maybe a weekly basis.
Even a weekly basis at least, right? You have to at least have some kind of plan. There's a lot of resources out there that you can find. I think people shouldn't be lazy to research stuff. So go to your favorite, somebody that you can benchmark. If you're in the fashion industry, go look into somebody who's also into fashion, but you feel they're doing a good job.
Or maybe how you want your brand to be
exactly.
Like,
and look into that and study it and say, okay, how are these guys doing it? How can I take this same thing and make it my own thing? But at least you have a strategy, or at least you have a plan. So planning is important, consistency is important, and in today's world, content is important. So even when you're a fashion designer, you need to make videos about a lot of other things. Don't be stuck on, I'm a fashion designer, I'm a fashion designer, I'm a fashion designer. I think you and me had a conversation about Cecilia Bamusi earlier. Cecilia Bamusi for me is a very interesting creative. I've studied how she's risen from, she basically blew up on Twitter, right? And at first she blew up because she was posting her clothes and people were like, wow, this is nice. You know, oh, you're really good. Oh my God, I'd love to have you make something for me. And then from there, she basically merged the talent and her personality. So now, even now, the way that she interacts with or engages with people on Twitter, etc., people will go to her page not to check out fashion or to check out what she's done, but they'll go to her page to find out what has Cecilia been talking about today. What has she been trending on today? And then from there, she's using that to promote her art or promote her tailoring business or a fashion brand. So content is key. Don't get stuck in just posting about your business. Nobody likes being sold to anymore, you know? Nobody likes adverts, that's just a fact. It's a terrible time for marketers because but don't be stuck in just posting about, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. It's important that you offer value. So there's different things that you could do. You could be educative, where basically you put yourself in a position where I know how to do this and I can show you how my process is or how I do certain things. So if you make beats, for example, you could do videos or you could write up about how you make your beats, ideas.
The whole process.
Exactly. People love the process and use the process to create content. You create content, you create consistency, you add value. You add value, you grow. That's pretty much it.
And I totally agree with that. I think people love stories.
Yes.
People love stories. So when you are selling your art, it's just the same as music. We fall in love with music from the story.
From the story,
from
exactly.
the song. So I think people love stories. And if you can be able to sell your art through stories, I mean, why not? Which can be content creation nowadays, where even as a music producer or as a musician, you can start from how did this thought come about?
Turn into a whole song.
Even just the whole process of recording music, because I think my understanding is like sometimes you people can sleep the whole night creating music
Yeah.
and all this and that, and I think we don't get to see that. We actually just see the end product where, oh, my
It's a
song is
song.
being released
Yeah.
on this day, but we actually don't even know the whole story behind the scenes, what went
What
down.
happened?
Vesi, okay, maybe I wanted to put this first, but I deleted it because it wasn't going with the beat. Now I ended up putting this verse, and I think all that is important. But like you said, not every creative is actually a creative.
Exactly.
Some people are just influencers where they can just give us end product, but the other people, they can actually use that whole process to actually be able to share with us.
Yeah, it's about sharing. And I was also saying this, I think, in one of my classes. I was saying, as soon as you decide that, okay, I'm a creative, you need to humble yourself and nobody, you're going to put yourself out there, and you're going to be open to attacks, you're going to be open to people saying bad things about you. But you just have to humble yourself and be like, okay, I'm vulnerable as a creative because my brand is not, it's not the music, it's yourself and how you create the music and or what kind of music you make and how my brand is not just the actual clothes. Yes, that's what you're selling the clothes, but you don't sell a brand. A brand is the story now that you create around whatever product you got. If you're a fashion designer, you have to create a story around the clothes that you have. You've got a TV show. I like what you do, and every time you go somewhere and to shoot something, you always post it on your social media, and you always bigging them up. Oh, guys, I went to Chaguchi. This place is so nice. Blah blah blah. You're actually adding more value to the places that you're visiting by not just ending at, we've come, Guji, we should shoot a show, and then you shoot the show and you're out.
And I think I think one of the biggest projects that I've had while working with NBC, because I was doing a tourism program. Of course, I think I didn't also do much publicity about it, but I've been able to actually go to some places where some of the other people that are doing travel influencer, that they have not been able to go. But through, like I'm saying, through this program, I was able to go to all those places, but I just didn't do a good job of actually posting on social media. But it also takes a lot. Creating content, I think, is actually not easy.
It's not.
It needs time. You also need to be intentional, because you also just don't want to bring things out there. There has to be a story. There has to be a coordination, and like, what are you selling
consistency
to us? So I think that was maybe the hard part for me. That's how I just ended up not really putting a proper creation of the whole content of the whole trip. But we're in Cape Maclear. We went to all the islands that side.
Oh, as in Mumbo.
And I know, Mumbo. And I know most people haven't been to what's the name?
Ligoma.
Pa something. I've just forgotten. Kwathu, I've just forgotten. But anyway, this is one of the beautiful places we have here.
Oh yeah?
This is one of the beautiful places we have, and I know it's expensive, and it's mostly marketed for people outside. It's actually not marketed in Malawi, and I think they actually need to look into that, because it's for Malawians, but they actually don't focus on us in the sense of it's expensive, but also they better make it affordable so that Malawians can go too. But they even mentioned only 3 names to say these are the only people
that actually,
like influential people that have been able to come here, but most people, because they don't even allow day trips. They only do maybe a day and night and all of that. So I'm like, but maybe they should actually look into having more people go there.
I think, I mean, let's talk about tourism for a minute, right? Like, one of the things that I've been in the tourism industry. I've worked for one of the biggest tourism companies in Malawi, Sunbird. And what I noted at the time, which is I think something that Vera Kantukuli, the Honorable Minister of Tourism now, is doing very well, is localizing the products and localizing the brands. The moment you think, for example, if we talk Sunbird, the moment you think Sunbird, the picture that comes in your mind is somebody from outside. If they're not somebody from outside, they've probably gone there for a conference. That's basically where they've positioned themselves rather. So Malawi as a brand, as a tourism brand, we were too focused on Goba and Tragunja to come to Malawi, but not really, the domestic market, which I think the tourism industry only realized this in 2020, 2021 when COVID hit and people weren't traveling, but they still needed to make business. So now they were in a situation, now they were in a situation, us now, you see, and that's also another thing that creators should look at in terms of when you're branding yourself. Don't over-brand yourself to a point where
people cannot afford you now.
Exactly. I was giving an example the other day of this young man who, what's his name? Is it Pop Young?
Yeah.
It's Pop Young, right? Yeah. He branded himself with the my shows cost 3 million.
Yeah.
You know, and by doing that, immediately, a lot of show organizers will think, "Oh man, that's expensive. I gotta pay this guy 3
But I
million.
have a good show, but I don't think I can
Afford
it.
3 million."
Yeah.
You know, immediately you've cut off your own market,
Yeah.
and then on the other hand, now people are coming and attacking you now to say, "What makes you think you're worth 3 million per
Yeah.
performance?" And then you've left yourself open
Yeah.
to negative stuff. So branding yourself needs to be at a space where you actually connect to the market. You do not
think
that
that's also
yeah.
important,
You need to make sure that you're connecting to the market and your brand makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, just because you've seen someone do it, then I'm gonna do it too. When it doesn't make sense and the
also I
value
think
doesn't add up.
Maybe pricing yourself, it takes time as well.
Mm.
If you're a youngster, grow
Exactly.
in the process. Right now,
That patience that you were
yes,
talking about.
grow in the sense of start affordable pricing for yourself right now, knowing, okay, I have hit songs, that's fine and good. Raise the bar high a little bit, but do not raise the high to the extent to worry about, hey, what's our legendary
yeah.
people? What is
You
that?
see?
But overall, there's nothing wrong to knowing your value and what you put out there.
No, absolutely.
And pricing yourself according to that value that you think you're worth. But you should also look like the same thing of researching your target audience and your market and all of that. It's also important where it's like,
It is.
know the people around you. Like for me recently, I've realized to say, okay, with how I want my brand to be, my fashion brand, it's like the picture I had in my head and how Malawi is, it's not
different.
real, it's different. So now it's about, okay, how do I best suit in Malawi standard first? But that doesn't mean that I should also say forget about the dream that I have.
No,
because
absolutely not.
people will eventually accept you when you put in the market that you want. But for now, it's also still about, okay, let me see through let me study this market and see how it goes. You know, and then later
where
on
you
you're gonna
fit in.
grow into
Yeah.
you actually reach to how you want your brand to be exactly. You know, because you also cannot just target yourself as on Malawi market, but globally.
You have
as
to,
well.
I mean, you have
So
to have a vision, right?
Your standard
Yeah.
has to just not be about Malawi, but globally. But it's step-by-step process.
You've got a good point. You know, a lot of creatives in Malawi, Malawi. You know what I mean? They feel like
That's it.
there's the bar there that
cannot
is set. Yeah.
Breakthrough.
And of course that's why it ends up good. It's very rare for like Malawian creatives to blow up unless they leave Malawi, they go somewhere else.
And then the network there.
The network there, and then now their value becomes better. So when you're branding yourself, I think also don't set limits for yourself. Don't be in a box.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in Malawi, and we that's why I think I'll take the music industry. There's a lot of people who sound the same in Malawian music. Why? Because they saw something that worked and they said, okay, Nelson
I think now
the Amapiano is crazy
because
now.
this is creating
Exactly.
Amapiano, now everybody wants to create Amapiano.
Everyone
Like,
has an Amapiano song now.
What happened to creativity and being original? Because I think, for example, for me recently, I think one upcoming artist that's so outstanding that I've been seeing, Nature.
Oh yeah. Oh, I saw you post about that
He's a
actually.
youngster, and I've seen his music. I'm like, this guy is so dope.
And then that guy
And he's
is really
creative
good.
as well, because you can see his music videos. You can actually, for a person with a good eye, you
Yeah.
can see the creativity in
Activity
him
goes
of
in.
what he wants to show us, that there's something in him. And he actually needs a good team. He needs a good team.
He does.
Proper grooming and all of that. And he can go for, because I look at him and how I see Rema from Nigeria. Because Rema is a youngster like that where
But
there was
he's
somebody
blown
that
up.
believed in him and promoted him, and now he's a global star. It's just the same as we have people like that here in Malawi where they just need that recognition, which can
They
come
just-
back to our topic of how do you manage your social media?
Yeah.
Put your things on social media. We live in a digital world right now. It's in the first
Exactly.
century where everything you can get it on social media.
On your phone.
Yes, so
Literally.
if you sell yourself nicely, I think like just how I saw him as well, they can be, well, me, I don't have the capacity to help him but in that regard,
But
the
at least
music
you saw
regard.
the value.
But I saw the value where if I had the means to, I think I would have been one of the people to say, I want to
wait.
have you in my team.
True.
Because I can see it in him, but he needs the people in the music industry that can see
To accept
that
him.
can see him like that and help him grow, because he is one of the stars that can actually even make it grow, because his music,
He is.
he's mixing Chichewa, I don't know, the Chitumbuka,
English, it's all mixed in there.
and I think you cannot say, good, maybe you're doing Malawi music, that means you cannot go far. We dance to Nigerian music.
I'm a piano way.
Yeah, South African songs. We don't know what they're even saying, but we like the beat and we're grooving to it. We like the music. So you also yourself, you can do Yawo, you can do Chitumbuka, whatever. But it's all about how creative are you to actually make this an international song that can actually that can resonate to everybody, not just Malawi,
not just the
because
Malawian
we
because their
understand
language,
it, but everybody can actually enjoy it. So when they start thinking beyond Malawi borders, then maybe
that's how we can grow.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, the platforms that are out there right now, it's not just Malawians who are on them. So if you're an artist and you're on Facebook and you're posting your stuff on Facebook, know Woody, there's a chance somebody from Zambia, South Africa, Tanzania is going to see it, you know, and it still needs to make sense to them the way that it makes sense to, I guess, Malawians. But therein lies the value of your art and how creative you actually are into growing in that. So it's not easy.
It is not.
It's not easy. It's something that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And like I said, you have to be intentional about what you want. Someone gets into Zogude for the just maybe it could work. No, you can't do that anymore. Not in the creative industry. We can't do that anymore. You need to be intentional.
That's actually true. I mean, maybe give a few examples of some people with the qualities that you have mentioned of growing your brand and managing social media. Maybe can you give examples of actually Malawian people, or Malawian creatives that actually in line with all this qualities? Maybe people can also take a look into them and see how best they actually do it.
Okay, because I'm a hip hop head, I follow a lot of musicians.
So
there is Physics, who's done very well in terms of marketing and branding himself. You know, this is a guy who came from Jola Bisa to, he's a corporate banker now and he's a marketer, but he's still making really dope music. And the way that he looked at the game, he studied it, and you can just tell. If you're serious, look into Physics and even go back to his post from like 2016 and look at the way that he posts now, right? You can see the growth. You can see the way that the page grew from where it was to...
Consistency as well.
Consistency was the key for Physics. And yeah, it really was. For Physics, he's the ultimate example of how consistency can help you.
People from way back know him. Now the younger generation know him.
He's just been hammering at it, and he takes his brand very seriously. So what you can learn from Physics is the consistency, and then the fact that having a team is very important. Physics has got a whole team. He started his company, Sony Entertainment, and he's got one of Malawi's best marketers. His name is George Damson. He's got his own marketing and promotion company, but he's Physics' manager. And he's got a PR person who handles all his press releases and public relations, everything. He's got a graphic designer who's specific just to make Physics stuff, you know, and he's probably even got an assistant who takes his bookings for him, kind of thing. As a creative brand, the moment you decide, I'm a creative brand, a creative enterprise, you're a small business. There's no way a business works without other people helping you in. Even if you sell eggs, you know what I mean? You need somebody to go buy the eggs.
To check, did we balance? Did we make sales? Are we making profit?
Have a team. Make sure. So that's one person that you could follow. On the flip side, there's this guy called Black Isco. Not a lot of people know him, but he's somebody that I've also studied a lot, and I've looked into his growth as a brand. And he's a rapper from Blantyre. He's very good, but because his brand of music is very hip hop. It's not hip hop. He's not the kind of guy to dance on or to rap on an piano beat. He'll give you hip hop. But then he's grown himself through consistency, and then he realized what I was saying earlier. Don't just post new music. I've got it. No, don't do that. What he did is he started basically building a narrative around what he does. His full name is Francis Chantunya. His family runs BIU. He's an economist, and he just started making content about economics, basically, around that. And that's where he started getting people. He actually, recently, he was featured from a TikTok. Now, listen to me, from a TikTok. he was featured in the Nation newspaper because he called out the government to say, the government keeps saying we have to devalue the kwacha, and then he basically explained the economics behind devaluing your currency and why it doesn't help Malawians at all. So he's basically just found his lane. Okay, content, I'll be talking about economics. But when people come to my page and they start being consistent about seeing my content, I'm a rapper. So that's somebody that I think you're a good example yourself, because I have seen you from way back. I've seen you grow, I've seen you stumble, I've seen you come up. So you're a very good example of how consistency and just believing in yourself, especially, makes a good brand. Because a brand, like I said, a brand is what people say about you when you're outside the room, but you need to believe, this is me. I am the brand. This is my brand. So you are somebody who's remained consistent no matter what has gone on in your life. You've just been that brand. Google NI, Google International. I know she makes clothes. She makes dope clothes, and she's a creative. And you do more than just clothes, obviously. TV, Chanchani. So consistency and believing in your own brand before other people see it, right? Another guy I would mention, Ben Sam.
Okay.
Right? Ben Sam has been, when I found out about Ben Sam, he was at the time, I think, the biggest videographer. He came up at the time of Ndana, Ajna Redding, Ron CZ and all those kind of guys. And then he went into music, and his brand basically became a creative who supports the creative industry. Yeah, he was doing, he had Ben Sam Entertainment. There was quite a few hit songs actually, Ajna Bumpty, that kind of stuff. So he's basically put himself in a space where I'm a creative that supports the creative industry. And his page is still relevant. He's grown himself. Now he's a podcast.
He's done
movies and all that kind of stuff. So believing, he's a guy who just he believed in himself no matter what. When he stopped doing photography, people said Ben Samanata, Myers. He moved on to videography, and he moved on to music, and he moved on to, that's being a creative. So study the legends.
And also, I mean, those are just a few names, but you can be able to actually see a lot of Malawians that are doing so well, that have even transformed from where they started to actually having their own brand right now. They have so many stories. Take a look at some Malawians that are doing so well on social media. Make use of social media. Social media is actually a greatest tool where you can use it to your advantage. You know, you can use it to a greater good. Not everything on social media has to be negative, where you're bullying each other, bringing people down. But you can also use it to your advantage. Share the art that you do. If you're a musician, fashion designer, everything that you do, share it to the world. People, that's how you get business. People can also appreciate your work and even live for you to people because they've seen the work that you do because you've shared it on social media. So it's very important to use social media wisely. I'm still learning also. Still learning. But so that's what we had for you guys today on our podcast, talking about how can your creative grow their brand and how can your creative manage the social media. And of course I had a lovely guest, Alex Diesel, who managed to share us more intel and including examples and of who is doing what, and also how they've managed to create their brand and be where they are right now. So consistency is the key. He kept on saying consistency. So which means you guys be on the lookout, and if you're trying to create a better brand for yourself, use some of his advices that he mentioned right here. All those qualities, you can use them and you actually see yourself transforming to the brand that you want. Until next time, I've been your host, Ngugi, and goodbye.
Bye.